Welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa, and today we're stitching seam 10 on our CQtober project. I am loving working on this autumn pillow project. I never thought I would enjoy stitching on the cotton velveteens and corduroy quite so much, but I'm loving the look of it, and I can't wait to get going today. So let's choose our seam for today. Have our bowl. Let's pick one. There's one. See what it says. Today's seam is triple feather stitch, one of my favorites. I think I like them all, but I haven't stitched this in a while. Let's have fun with it. Let's choose a seam to do this one on. That's one that might be good for a long seam where we don't want to do a lot of extra stuff to it. So as I'm looking at this, we have a few long seams to do. We have this one. We also have this one, which is even longer. That might be the longest seam on the whole thing. We've got this one. That's also a really long one. And then we have kind of moderate one here. This is also a pretty long one over here. And I would love to do these long ones. Do I want to do that whole thing in one, or do this separate and this in one? I know we're going to plan on doing that one all in one. This is going to be one. That'll be one. I'm leaning to this one here, just because that'll keep us kind of working out from the center. Let's do this curved one with the triple feather. Let's also pick our colors while we're here. Now remember that I'm probably going to be taking a couple of inches off of the outside of this because the pillow is 16 inches square, and so we'll make the cover a little bit bigger. I may do an inch flange on the outside. I haven't decided that yet. We'll get to that at a later date. We're working on this brown and orange, and this one that's got the beige. I'm going to pull out some threads. We need the contrast, so we're going to go with a gold in here. I'm not sure which one. Lean into that one because we have the thicker one right here and over here. So if we do this one that's a little different, and see, that's going to disappear. And that's going to be okay in spots and disappear in others. So I think we're going for contrast again. I think we need to go with that gold. I think that's the one we need to go with. Now we have that cool green. No matter what else we put on it, the feather stitch is going to be the main draw of the seam. I want it to show up, and that's why I'm leaning to that. Thinking for accents, it depends on what we end up wanting to do with it. So I think those are our three colors that we're going to focus on. Let me get it in the hoop and on the frame, and we'll get stitching. As always, the supplies are linked in the description box below if you're interested in looking those up or making a purchase. I might pull out my stitch book once again. So there's a lot of variations that we could be doing. I'm looking at this one. This is a triple because it comes down and goes 1, 2, 3 off of it. 1, 2, 3 off of it. Pardon the neighbor banging. They have no control over what they're doing. Here's a really simple traditional triple. Here's one. This one's got little French knots and lazy daisies on it. This is probably the real traditional boxy method of doing it. I mean, we could do something really simple like that. So I think I'm going to start with this traditional method, and then we'll see what we want to add to it as we go. Move that over ever so slightly. That might be a little far, but remember we have to exaggerate on this fabric. We're going to come back just over onto that orange fabric. I want to think about taking it off at 45 degrees as we go. I've got these little applique pins. We're going to see if this helps me out. So if I'm thinking that's 1, 2, 3, my corner is going to be there. Let's do it that way. And then I can pull around that, and we're going to come out to there. I just need something to kind of give me a guide for where I'm going, because I feel like I'm losing my way. That seems really big. Let's come in a little bit there. I'm playing with it, trying to see where I'm going with it. I'm going to just leave those in place. Once I have my pattern established, I find it fairly easy to maintain that. And see, I even think that one's out a little ways. I think that's better there. All right, and so now we know we're at coming back, and we're going to go here. So basically I'm dividing what's between that and the pin into 3 sections, preferably without getting it all wrapped around that pin. I'm just using that pin to guide where I'm going. So yeah, I think once we get both of these curves done off of that top, which is not a complete one, that's going to help. So now I'm going to come up right where that pin was. All right, we're not perfectly straight, but you know what? It's going to do. We're going to go just the other side of that. I'm a lot happier with that now. And so now we can keep coming, and I'm not quite 45. I'm just a little under, so that helps me see where I'm going. So 1, 2. My experience is it gets more even as I go. Now we're going to come off that way. Now this way. So we're going to end up stitching a little farther off into that orange fabric than I had originally planned, but I'm not going to worry about it. And so when you're doing this, one of the tricks to remember is that you are always keeping your stitches on top of the thread. If you start varying it, then it changes it completely and it won't have quite the impact that you're looking for. I really feel like I'm moving off into the orange, and we need to be kind of moving back to the brown a little bit. So this one's going to have a little bigger stitch here. I think it's partly because of the curve. I probably should have moved that point down here. And you know what? We're having a day of it here. So you have to pull out the upper, and then you can, there you go. See how that's sort of a double pull to get it out properly? Yeah, to go around that curve, I need to adjust where my points are at. This is a spot where if I was marking fabric, I probably would have drawn a light line to kind of keep me in perspective, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use my pins. I can actually see a little bit where I was. So this one's going to come out more perpendicular. I'm going to try and go there. We're going to see if we can get back over this way a little bit. Preferably not pinning through the thread. As we go around, I think what I need to do is my angle on this side needs to always stay that full 45 degrees, but the one on the inside that's pointed towards the brown needs to be less. I think that will help me stay centered around that curve. So let's try this again. Trying to keep that straight line going. Okay, now we're going to angle in a little more. That's better. That's going to be closer to where I wanted those stitches. Yeah, that's better. So now we're going to go again, full 45 off. figure out where to come up, we'll be all set. Okay, yeah, you can see how that just buried right in there. All right, so now we're going to come off again a little bit less than 45. And I realize that I'm not bringing my needle up far enough, and so those are slanting a little bit backwards. We might only get one or two of these. So I need to bring my needle what looks like it's a little further back along this line so that it ends up straight. I think that's as far as I can go with that thread. Let's tie that off, make a knot. Okay, now we can come back this way. So basically you can see that what we're doing here really looks like buttonhole or blanket stitch stitched at angles. And that's really what feather stitch is. It's just a variation on a theme. So if you know how to do buttonhole or blanket, then you know how to do this one. I'm feeling like I'm not making this angle quite big enough. I'm going to turn this just slightly to make it easier for me to work. So I'm going to stitch down, like I said, about 2 inches of this is going to get cut off, but I'm going to go ahead and come down because I'm thinking about the possibility of leaving a pillow flange on the outside of that. I'd rather just stitch out as close to the edge as I can get. And I know technically they say you're not supposed to do that, but we're not putting any beads on this. It's just all embroidery. That way I know I have enough to cover what I want to do. Okay, I need to open that up a little bit. That's what I keep forgetting to do. I think we've gotten bigger as we've gone. Maybe not. Maybe it's just an optical illusion. Hard to say at this point. And then we're going less than 45 here. Got a little bobble in that. At this point, I've torn enough out, I'm not tearing any more out. And this end is a little loose because I'm barely over the edge of the hoop with this one. Okay, I need to open that up a little bit. That's what I keep forgetting to do. I think we've gotten bigger as we've gone. Maybe not. Maybe it's just an optical illusion. Hard to say at this point. And then we're going less than 45 here. Got a little bobble in that. At this point, I've torn enough out, I'm not tearing any more out. And this end is a little loose because I'm barely over the edge of the hoop with this one. And I am going to bring it back a couple more stitches. Let's get as close to the edge here as we can go, just in case I need it. When I'm machine stitching over these edges, say for a pillow top, that thread is going to be locked in there pretty tightly. So I'm not real concerned about my embroidery coming loose from that. So now we need to think about what we're adding next. I like that that one gives a little wider width to the seam. You know, we've got this narrow one right next to it. So I like that variation in there. Do we want to do something like this with a French knot and the lazy daisies? We could do the French knot right in the middle with the lazy daisies. And I'm going to put the French knots in first, and that way it will be easier to see where we want the lazy daisy leaves. So I'm just going to start down here at the bottom, because I think where we're going to put it is going to be optical center, not actual center. Because if we put it in actual center, that'd put it way off to one side. You can see even on this one, it is off center. So it's really almost above this first knot. So yeah, thinking about coming out right in here. I'm going to do 3 wraps. I think that's good. And we're just going to zigzag our way up this seam with French knots. Now I really like doing them with this thicker thread because I think it shows up so much nicer. And I'm trying not to pull it too tight because I want the bulk of that to make that knot just a little bit bigger, more visible. 1, 2, 3, then put it down. Just not in the exact same spot, but near it. If you put it in the same spot, you'll pull it right through the fabric. So I think these are going to go pretty quickly. Now they're not going to be quite as noticeable up here. Pattern will carry through, and that's what we're looking for. So I know I'm going a little high on that one. I do want to keep it kind of towards the brown. Get up here where I'm working away from myself and I'm having a hard time seeing where the needle goes. I was going to put 4 wraps on that one. Well, this didn't take long. So let's turn that over, make a knot, and let's go make some lazy daisies. So that's going to be back with this green thread. And I know we talked a few videos ago about having pared down the threads, and the nice thing is it ends up making your decisions easier, but it also helps bring cohesiveness to the project because you're now continuing with the same threads throughout. It just gives it a look that helps it all look like it belongs together instead of accidentally bringing in something that doesn't go very well. So let's make a somewhat long lazy daisy on these. And I don't want them to twist on this. Yeah, I think that's looking good. I'm going to bring them out the direction of the row of feather stitches on either side. I think that also will help it a little bit. We may angle slightly in on these wider ones. And trying not to twist it, not pulling it too tight either. Nice to have another one of these long seams done. I really am happy with that. I think they're going to make a difference in just bringing some cohesiveness to the whole project. They sort of flow through it. There, now we're off that multi-tone fabric, and so you're going to see those much better on this side. I keep trying to scoop stitch it, and it just doesn't work as well on this fabric when it's in the hoop. I'm looking at this and thinking I could have done that even brighter heavy gold for those French knots as well, but I think I like bringing in that spot of burgundy with it. I think we'll be able to make this pair, and I'll need a new thread. All right, there we go. Let's turn it over, make a knot. And I went too far on that. We need to come back and do this one. So it's been a bit of a learning curve here lately, which is really frustrating because I've been using the same program for the better part of 2 years now and had no issues. And suddenly it's every video. That's been a frustration. And thank goodness the stitching, for the most part, has been going wonderfully. Couple cat hairs in there. I do think using the dryer sheet on it helped a little bit. Maybe it just brings them to the top where I can get them off easier. I'm not sure, but I do think it helped a little bit. You can see those nice on this orange and on the brown. I like the way that it looks on both of them. And like French knots, when you're doing these lazy daisies, make sure you're not going down in the same hole, because then you will actually pop the end of the lazy daisy into the hole and it ends up looking just like you've got 2 straight stitches. It'll pull that end right there all the way through the fabric and you just don't even see it. I can see I got this French knot a little ways away from where it probably should have been, so we'll make it work. Too late to change that one now. All right, we're going to come and do this one. And once we have this pair, don't scoop it, Lisa, just stab stitch it. One more lazy daisy and then we have finished this seam. Well, come on, there we go. All right, let's turn it over. There we go. There's our finished seam. I think it balances really well with everything else that's going on. I like the fact that it's again a little wider. We have that juxtaposition of the narrower seams with some of the wider ones. I think that's turning out really well. Seam 10 is done. I'm so grateful that you've been spending your time with me today. Thanks so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, happy stitching, and I'll see you in the next video.